Alright, let's check the live stream, see how we're looking. Adjust this back a little bit here. Okay. Looking for a good view. Alright. So, welcome back to the live stream, this Ls4 bowl. I was not able to get this work done yesterday because of something that came up at the last second. So I'm going to try to get as much done today as I can. I don't really have all that much more to go here, and I can actually start pulling this out. I've been editing all the footage that I have so far. There's a few things I have to go back and re-record. A few notes I have to insert. It's just some things that I noticed. So I definitely will be doing that today. So the goal today is to get the accessory belt off, as well as the power steering pump and the alternator. And I want to get the rear coil packs off. I don't think it's actually necessary getting the motor out because of the way that it moves, but I don't know. I'm just a little bit concerned about this area here. I was concerned about the last 2 times, and I thought, I'll just save a little bit of time and not worry about it. But actually getting the coil packs off of the valve covers is really easy. So it's not even anything to really worry about. You know, I've been kind of going back and forth as far as how many steps do I want to do this. I want to try to make it as short as possible, but then again, lower your chance of breaking something. I mean, there's I've been kind of going back and forth, so you know, the extra few steps that I'm adding in here don't take much more than a couple of minutes, so it's not like I'm adding a whole bunch of stuff here, in which case it's pointless to take it off the top. You just might as well just drop it and be done with it. So anyway, go ahead and start working on the accessory belt. Okay, so the next step we need to do is we need to go ahead and get our accessory belt off. There's a couple ways you can do this. You can rent or buy that expensive tool that reaches down in there and grabs the tensioner and allows you to loosen the belt. That's actually the quickest way if you want to spend the money. If you don't want to spend the money, and since you've already got your wheel well open like this, you can invest a couple of bucks in this clamp here that I got at Home Depot for, like I said, $2, $3. This clamp here is a 3 to 5 inch clamp, and it's a hose clamp. Basically what you do is you take the clamp and you wrap it around the tensioner right here. You want to make sure that it's completely around the tensioner, because if this slips, and why is it not loose? Oh, jeez. It'd help if I loosen it up. So what you do is you take your hose clamp and you wrap it around the tensioner right here. You can see where I wrapped it around. You want to make absolutely certain that it's completely wrapped around this tensioner, because if it happens to break free, all this tension is going to probably cause some problems, and not least of all injury. So make sure that the tensioner is around there completely. And then basically all you do is, based on whichever hose clamp you have, which again, I got this one at Home Depot. I'm sure they're fairly universal. This is actually an 8mm end down here, as well as a flathead end. So I'm going to be using an 8mm socket in order to get this squeezed down pretty good. In order to get this, can't fucking talk, too early in the morning. In order to get this to compress down, you only need to compress it down as far as you need to get the belt off. You don't need to have it all the way down to nothing. Remember, the less tension you have on there, the better. Motherfucker. Oh, that's nice. There's a crack in it. God damn it. Guess I might have used this hose a little too many times. Or clamp. There's a big crack in it. Oh, good thing I got another one of these. So that sucks. The other one had a crack in it. I wasn't paying attention or it happened while I was on the tensioner. Gotta shake this thing up. Huh. I'm actually surprised it just kind of snapped off there and didn't like take off. Alright, let's try this again with a different clamp. Make sure we're tight. That was really weird. Guess I've used that clamp up so much. I ended up buying two a long time ago because I thought that it was only going to last for one time, so I bought two. I'm glad that I did. I got an extra one here. Make sure this thing is fully seated. I'm getting fidgety. Afraid this one's gonna bust. I need some heat. It's cold in here. Okay, so once you've gotten the clamp compressing that tensioner down far enough, you should be able to just remove the belt. Now, removing the belt's actually a lot easier than installing the belt, but we don't have to worry about that right now. Just kind of carefully run it through all the accessories, your AC, the pulley, crank pulley, and this would be a good time to replace the belt if you have not done so in a long time. I can't see anything down here. God damn it. What the fuck? Wedged in between the crank and the I can only imagine if they didn't shorten the LS for this, probably wouldn't be able to even change a. What the fuck? Damn. The fucking thing is wedged in between there. I've never had that happen before. Shit. Still looks pretty good. It's only about 25,000 on this. I don't see any scuff marks or anything on it. Nope. Looks good. Alright, well I didn't even need to record that. What's next? I'll be right back. Hello? Yeah. With my medium-sized ratchet. Oh, what? Okay, with the accessory belt off, we can go ahead and remove the alternator. Pretty easy to do. Right here on the side here, you have a wire harness that goes to the ECM. Then pull that off. Then you have a main battery cable connect. This actually charges the battery. This is a 13 millimeter. It's a nut on the end here. Once off, go ahead and replace the nut so you don't lose it. Then you have 4 15 millimeter bolts. There's 2 here in the front, and there's also 2 here in the back. Now the back ones, the rear ones here, might be a little difficult to get to if you're using a 1/2-inch drive ratchet. You may have to downsize it to a smaller ratchet as well as a smaller socket, but nice brakes. Change them once in a while. You might have to downsize to a smaller ratchet as well as a shorter socket. So go ahead and remove all 4 of those. I keep rolling it out. Yeah, this one's a pain in the ass. Forgot about this one, it's so difficult to get to. Okay, so if you don't have a shorter ratchet, a wrench will work just fine. Likely you're only going to have a problem here on the right-hand side. There just isn't that much room between the alternator and the firewall. So I ended up using a 15mm wrench to get the rest of it out. And this will slide right out just like that. Oh, crap, it's cold. I'm up to about 45 minutes or so in actual cut footage. That is what's actually going to be on the video. So why are you... Stupid thing. Alright, power steering pump. This is pain. Power steering pump is not fun. I forgot how many of these routers are in here. I've got a bunch of footage of me removing the power steering pump the first time. See, they've got the power steering lines, the metal lines that run down the back of the motor. They use clamps to hold them to the block so that the power steering lines don't go anywhere. Well, when I had such a hard time getting mine, I actually broke one of them. And I don't think I even attached the other ones. And it has not interfered with the belt in any way. But should probably, yeah, see, mine's just kind of, mine's freely moving around, which I don't, that doesn't bother me at all. I think there might be one, yeah, I got one attached down here at the bottom. I forgot what it was. I think it's a 10mm, maybe, yeah, I think it's a 10. It's a 10. Can't remember Can't remember how much slack is on these things. I know it can come up quite a bit. There are two power steering fluid lines that are running right here in the front. I know it can come up quite a bit. And I think that actually makes it a lot easier to grab these. Last time I grabbed them, because I didn't know how much slack was going to be on the power steering lines, I ended up, I mean, it was such a pain in the ass getting up underneath here to get one of them and then reaching back here with all sorts of different contraptions to get the other one back there. And I don't even remember how many there are, but mine's not even attached. Mine's just floating around. I only have one bolt that's holding these power steering lines in, and it hasn't moved anywhere. So but again, I've got all that footage of the first time I did this when I actually had it on camera and I was janking it around and doing all sorts of stuff to get these. So I can probably just tap that in there. I'll be right back, guys. I'm going to go inside. I'm going to check the GM manual because I want to make absolutely sure that I know the exact count and the approximate locations before I start recording. I'll be right back. Okay, so there's 2 bolts and 1 clamp. 2 bolts and 1 clamp total to do this. It looks like what I did was fuck is in my eye. What I did was I just put this front bolt back in because that was the easiest to get to. And the rear bolt for the power steering line is all the way back here, right above the manifold. And I do remember what a pain this was to get to. It was just terrible. So there's a clamp. Yeah, this bolt that's on the back here, I ended up putting the bolt back in, but I didn't I didn't attach it to anything. I said, screw it. So I will have to make a note of that in the video, and I do have footage of me getting it out, so I think I'll just tap that in there. Oh, what a pain. The thing is that it doesn't matter. If you bring the motor down, you still have to do all of this. So it's not like this is an extra step or something. So oh yeah, they're both 10. Why do we have an 11 here? Oh yeah, that's right, the fuse box. Okay, so now we need to remove the power steering pump, as well as the power steering reservoir, as well as we have to move the power steering lines. There's a high pressure and return line here. Those have to be removed off of the motor. There's 2 bolts and 1 clip to hold these in. Now, I've done this before, so I have video footage of me doing it the first time, which I'll paste in here. But the second time around, I did not replace the bolt that's on the back side here because it's very difficult to get to, and I figured it'd be okay like it is. And of course, after a year of driving, yes, it's okay. However, I would recommend you put it back. But I did not replace mine. So I can show you how to get this bolt here, but I'm also going to tie in some footage of how I was able to get both of these bolts off. Now, in order to get the power steering pump off the actual motor, you need to remove the pulley first. What I have here is a Pulley Puller and installation kit. I ended up buying this one, but you can rent these at Napa or AutoZone or wherever. They do carry them. They're about 80 bucks. I think I paid $80 or so for this one, but it comes with the instructions. You will absolutely need this in order to pull this pulley off. So just keep that in mind. You will need to invest in one of these. And as well as getting the reservoir off is a simple 10mm bolt that's right here on the side. Okay, so once you remove this 10mm bolt that's down here, this will actually pull up like this. You gotta kind of wiggle it back and forth, but once you've lifted up, you'll notice that you actually don't have much room here because the power steering pump has a small hose that comes down here. So the problem is you actually have to get this off and this off at the exact same time. So you basically pull them up at the exact same time. So once you have this bolt off, you also need to blah, 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 blah. So once you have this bolt off, then you're going to need to turn your attention to the power steering pump. Heat in here. Cold. Alright, now, which one's which? Where'd the other one run off to? Either of you guys see where that other one went? Might have hit the ground. Go. Thought it hit the ground. Damn it. No, I didn't. Alright, let's try this again. We're not dropping it. Just don't remember which way. I thought it went this way, but it's not clamping down. It clamps down now, but. What the fuck is going on? Why won't you go down the way? Damn. Yes. I'll see if I can get you guys a better shot of what I'm doing up here since I'm in the way. I don't know if this is going to even help. See if I can get the camera up a little bit higher. So I'm removing the power steering right now. Power steering pump. Requires this pulley. That's as high as I can go. Hopefully that's a better angle for you guys. Just removing the power steering pump right now. Trying to remember. The easiest way was to get that. I think it's a 15 or 18 millimeter wrench. Might be an 18. Yeah, it's an 18. Oh, damn. It's a 20. 21. What the hell? I remember it being that big. Well, there you go, it's a 21. Almost out of propane. Fuck, is that a 16? I'm used to 15s and 18s. And then this power steering puller as something completely different. Okay, so your power steering pulley puller might actually be different than this one, so I can't be specific as far as how yours is going to work. This one is the Evercraft, and you can see how I have it set up on here. Basically, what you're doing is you have to hold this pin here, is what they call it, or pinner. You have to hold this stationary, and then you turn this nut counterclockwise, and what it does is it slowly pulls the pulley out. But again, yours might be a little bit different. There's a few different designs. Just follow the instructions on your puller, and you should have no issues getting your power steering pulley off. Tell you what, I am sick of the cold weather. I am sick of snow. I am ready for it to be nice out. It's just seems like it's been the longest winter ever. And I'm not joking. It just feels like it's been the longest winter ever. Anybody out there has a front engine mount they want to send me, I would appreciate it. Mine is busted already, just the front one. Pretty common. So if anybody has an extra one, let me know. Sounds like wind chimes under here. Alright, there goes the power steering pump pulley. For the 10th time, I've dropped this other piece. Maybe it was 100 times. Energy fall too. All right. Once again, where did you fall to? I didn't hear or see where it went this time. What the hell? Oh, there it is. Jeez, it's sitting on the tensioner. Glad I invested in buying one of these. It's only like $60, $70 for this thing. I got it at Napa. never know when you might need it. See if I can move this over so I'm not in the way. That might help a little bit. Not real sure. Okay, so with the pulley away, now we can turn our attention to the three 13mm bolts that actually hold the power steering pump itself to the motor. There's 3 in total. I'll keep it around my pocket. Okay, with the 3 bolts off, it is a good idea. You can see there's a line here, this power steering line that runs down here. This is your high pressure side. And down here, you may or may not be able to see it from this angle, but down here, there is a loom that is attached to a 13mm. Is it 13? No, 10. Shit. That is attached to a 10mm bolt. It's down under here, right in this area. Again, it's hard to, you can't see it very well without feeling around for it. So that has to be removed before you can move this around, because there's absolutely no slack on this line. This is a metal line. Okay. Man, this one's a pain to get to. Holy shit, still coming out? Okay, so maybe now you can see where I'm kind of messing with this. Trying to get this 10mm out. That's the 10mm bolt that goes along the side there. And it's very difficult to get to because the wheel well is right here, so you need something short. If you just get it loosened up, then you can usually loosen it up by hand the rest of the way, but you need something short enough that can reach in there, because as you're backing out the bolt, then it's gonna hit this wheel well here. So, what next? So as I mentioned, there's another one on the back side here that's fairly difficult to get to. I've got video footage of me getting that out. I will splice that in right now. Once you have the bolts out on the lines, you can go ahead and see how much time you have left to record. Okay, a couple minutes. You can go ahead and move the power steering pump away. Sometimes it can be a little bit of a pain to get this out, to actually pull it out, especially getting it back in. That can be even more trouble. As I said before, you got to kind of do these both at the same time. And eventually, you'll rock it out of there. Oh man, I remember what pain in the ass this was getting this out. Urgh. The intake is right there, and if you don't have it just right, then it tends to wedge itself behind the intake, or in front of it. I almost got a screwdriver on my bar. Shit. Come on. I remember having this much trouble getting it out the first time. Yeah, it's stuck on the intake. I don't want to break that. Almost got it. It's like hanging right there. 10 seconds. There. Finally. Okay, so you can see there I had to use a pry bar to actually get this out. It's because the intake is right there, and you just got to kind of get it out perfectly out. I mean, just take your time because you don't want to damage the intake, obviously. So now that is away. And I better restart this so I can talk some more. Okay, so you don't have to worry about it right now. You don't have to worry about it until, check your mic. Okay, so you don't have to worry about it right now. You don't actually have to worry about it until you actually start to pull the motor out. But the power steering has to be moved out of the way. You don't have to yank it all back right now and get it out of the way because you're not really doing anything. It's loose. The bolts are disconnected. So now, basically, when you start to lift the motor out, then you'll be moving this out of the way, moving it in different directions. Lift it up a little bit more. You move it. You lift it up a little bit more. You move it. Rinse and repeat. So right now we don't actually have to worry about it. It's been disconnected from the motor. So now we can move on to something else. Which is what? What's next? Okay. Do that rear coil pack. Go deal with that rear coil pack right now. I was looking over to see if I've missed anything major. Besides the coil pack on the back side. I still have to get underneath the car and disconnect the downpipe and the O2 sensor. The rear one has to be loomed through because it comes up with the motor. Radiator hoses. I got the lower hose disconnected and still got the upper hose here to disconnect. Light. Okay, so now's a good time to disconnect our radiator hoses. In my case, for this particular one, I've already disconnected the lower hose that comes from the water pump over to the radiator. It's actually straight down there. It's hard to see. We should disconnect another hose. Now there's obviously a couple ways you could do this. You could disconnect this hose right here, in which case it's going to come up with the motor. That same hose runs up here. You can see the clamp right there. You can remove that and remove it from the motor. It all depends on ease of access and what you prefer to do. But there are two radiator hoses that have to be disconnected from either the radiator or from the water pump before you can pull this up. Now there is some slack on this large hose right here that runs down into the radiator on the driver's side, that lower portion. There is some slack there. So if you're having trouble reaching this clamp here, or maybe you're having trouble reaching that clamp there, which actually is easy to get to, then you can actually lift the motor up a little bit, and then that'll give you better access to this clamp here. Either way, again, you have two hoses you need to disconnect from the water pump. Either disconnect them at the radiator or disconnect them at the water pump, but they have to be disconnected before you pull the motor out. I didn't realize that. The drain cock is easily accessible from the top here. So I just wonder if I can actually get to it from the top. And that would avoid all the headache of having to do it from below. Oh yeah, I got transmission lines here to deal with. That's a handy trick. Don't even have to worry about it. That's cool. All right, well, I learn something new every day. For those of you watching live, the drain cock is easily accessible once the fan shroud is out of the way. You just reach down in here and you grab a hold of it. I did not know that. The only thing I'd ever be worried about is the reservoir might be full. These two here shouldn't have much fluid running around them. This is just the return line, the vent line. Oh, that's so cool though. I'm going to go back and edit that for sure. If you're removing the motor, no. That's cool. Okay, so now we need to drain the radiator. Now, with the fan shroud out and out of the way, if you look down here, I know it's hard to see on camera, behind this, if you look down here, I know it's a little hard to see on camera, behind this wire harness here, right there is the drain. And basically you just take some pliers and you turn it counterclockwise. By doing so, it's going to drain everything out, so make sure you have a drain pan directly underneath here. That's actually the easiest way to get to this, and it's easy if you have your fan shroud out. Actually very easy to reach that. Otherwise, there's not that much room up here to get to the drain cock because it's hidden kind of behind this radiator tray, as well as the lower radiator hose. That is brilliant. Why didn't I know that before? Okay, I'm going to have to redo a little bit of footage here. For those of you watching live, I just figured out that getting to that drain plug is 100 times easier if you have, I better not lose these, if you remove the fan shroud, because you can get to it real easy. The only issue with that is that because the reservoir might actually have some fluid in it, as soon as you disconnect this hose, you might get some fluid coming out. So what I have to do is I have to make a note in the video that be prepared for some fluid to come out, to have a drain pan up underneath here, and then you can plug, with something, you can plug your hose and keep more from coming out. So I'm just setting myself up to record this. It's actually kind of cool. I did not realize that you could get to it so easily from there. If you look at the GM Tech manual, it has you do it before you take the fan shroud out. Well, since we're doing the motor and everything's coming out anyway, why does it matter, right? Okay. This one goes. Shit. Fuck, I can't remember which one's which. Yeah, maybe that's it. Okay, we're going to insert this, check 1, 2, we're going to insert this into the radiator drain video, check, insert. Alright, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so when you're removing these, because we haven't drained the radiator yet, you need to be aware that you may have some fluid in your reservoir, which I do. So before you just yank this out, first of all, get yourself a pan that's going to be right underneath this area here to catch anything that happens to come out. Secondly, get something to plug this hose before you just let it go. So either hold it up like this, get something to plug it, and then you can take the hose and you can remove it all the way. Am I saying that right? No, I'm not. Because the fan shroud... Okay, check that again. I fucked up. Okay, so it's a lot easier to remove the fan shroud when you have these hoses out of the way. However, it's likely that you're going to have fluid. It's either going to be in the hose or reservoir. So before you pull this out, just be aware that you're going to get some spillage. So get yourself your drain pan, stick it right underneath this area here, and then once you pull your hose out, use your finger or something to temporarily plug it, and you can actually then get the hose out of the fan shroud, routing it through with your hand still on the end here, and then you can drain this into your drain pan. It's a lot easier to do it that way. Do the same thing for the lower hose here, except there shouldn't be much in there. You can actually take this and set it aside. You can drain it down into your pan if you want to, but there shouldn't be all that much in there. Just be careful of this hose here that I actually have quite a bit in the reservoir. Okay, that takes care of that. Oh, that's super, super handy, having that access. Wow. I wish I would have known that when I first started. I didn't realize it was so easy to get to from this side with the fan shroud out of the way. The fan shroud's actually easy to get out. It's real easy. Once you've disconnected these stupid wire looms, then it's real easy to get out. So, I'll have to take note of that if anybody asks on Ls4 Nation. They want to spend an extra 20 minutes getting that fan shroud out, then they got perfect access to that. What am I doing? First of all, I want to get some heat in here. It's starting to really get cold. I know, I'm just about out of propane. It's almost in the red. Just about in the red. Well, now I can drain the rest of the radiator. Saved myself a lot of pain if I would have known that before. Just turned about 3 times and it still acts like it's stuck in it.